Are you unknowingly annoying your woman because you constantly interrupt her when she's trying to talk? Hi there, men's dating coach HarryWilmington here, founder of introvertdatingsuccess.com. And on today's show, I want to talk about why it's so important that you allow your woman to actually talk and finish her sentences and thoughts versus trying to interrupt her when she's trying to explain something to you. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and little bell icon to be notified of when I post up new daily videos. Also, be sure to go to the website to download my free ebook, Texting Like a Boss, as well as hitting on the tip jar tab to show your support, the links of which can be found at the website and in the description below. Let's go ahead and get into it. So this has been weighing heavily on my mind because I had an incident that happened today whereby a friend of mine that's in town needed to go meet with a female friend of his to talk about some business that they're trying to start. And I had met this female friend before, and so I was invited to come along. When I get to the apartment, it's this woman, and it's me, my friend who's a guy, and then another guy was also there. So there's three guys there, and there's a woman. And so basically what was happening was this woman needed help trying to push along a business that she's trying to start. And she had the, stuff together to make the business work, but she just needed to put together a team and kind of map out a strategy for how things were going to work for her business. Whenever I go into a situation involving women, involving any kind of conversation, because I've been teaching this kind of stuff for so long about dating and about women and in fact that I've researched them, one of the big things that I know is that women oftentimes get annoyed when they're around guys because when they try to talk, oftentimes guys will interrupt them. And then therefore they feel obligated to listen to the guy and they don't feel like they can get a word in edgewise and they actually end up secretly frustrated. And because I know this, when I go around a group of girls or women rather that are trying to talk about things, I make it a very big point to not only not interject as much as I possibly would want to, but I also take the time to really listen to them, let them finish their sentences all the way out before I interject or ask questions about whatever it is they're trying to talk about. And so a lot of women respect me and appreciate me when I conversate with them because they recognize that I'm going to actually listen to them and let them get things out. So today what happened though was that she would start talking about things. Like she would be mentioning something she wanted to do with her business, whether it was a way to advertise it or certain aspects of her business that she thought we'd need to know. And before she could interject and finish her sentences, one of the other guys that were there would interject with their own thoughts and feelings about either what they wanted to say or finish up what they thought that she was going to say. And then the other guy would jump in and start doing this too. And so I'm sitting there as the third guy observing in the back and just not really saying a lot because I'm looking at her and she brought us over here and she's trying to say something. And I'm looking at her like, I'm not going to say anything, but I can recognize that she's being frustrated because she's sitting there trying to be like, what I'm trying to say is, but she can't get a word in because she was very soft spoken. And these two guys that were talking back and forth were very loud and able to just interject and take over the room. And so me recognizing what she was probably going through, I would be the one to say, hey, so-and-so, what were you saying? Or wait, let's let her finish her point. Please tell us what you were going to say. And when I did that, you should have seen the way her face lit up at the fact that she was able to actually have somebody that was going to be able to say emphatically what you have to say is important. And you're the one that you're trying to get your idea and point across. So you're the one that needs to be heard in the situation more so than us. If anything, we need to be hearing from you more because you're the one that knows more about this than the rest of us do, even though we have our parts that we're good at because you're trying to bring us together as a team, but ultimately you know what this is about. And so she would talk and she'd finish her sentence. And then at that point, one of the other guys would say something else. And she'd let them talk all the way until they were done talking. And then she'd try to start talking again. And then she'd get interrupted again. So it got to a point where there were four of us in the room and they were kind of talking back and forth. The two guys, other guys that were there were talking back and forth across the room from each other. And it got to a point where even though they were talking, I would still be looking at her as if to say, I'm trying to hear what you have to say. So inevitably she stopped, she got up from where she was sitting and she walked over closer to me so that way we could have a conversation. And then during our conversation, I was letting her do 80% of the talking and I'd let her finish her complete sentences and thoughts. And then when she was done, then I would interject in and ask a question or say something like, oh yeah, I understand your experience because my experience in this realm of what you're trying to do is similar. And then I'd ask more questions about what her business was and what she was trying to do. So by the end of the meeting, she was asking me for my number. Like, again, I'm not trying to get with her, but she was asking me for my number to work on some extra business stuff or whatever, because she just really appreciated that I was being respectful of listening to her. Okay. Now, why do I bring this up to you? Because this is not just a thing that happens with women in business. This is a thing that women experience in their relationships with men. And a lot of women, unbeknownst to you, are complaining with their girlfriends or with guys who will listen about the fact that there are other guys that they're trying to date that will not listen. They will either try to interject, they will try to finish her sentences. They're ultimately more so trying to be heard, or whatever she's going through, they're trying to turn it into something about them, like that thing where women will be like, oh, I'm going through this thing at this thing at work, or I'm trying to implement this thing, or I'm having this situation. And then the guy will go, oh, that's like my situation because I went through this thing and blah, 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 blah. And, we do it because we want to show them that we are emoting with them and we are feeling the same thing that they're feeling because we went through the similar experience. But a woman that's going through the situation and talking to you about it isn't talking to you about it to hear about your experience. She's talking to you about it because she wants you to empathize back, and she wants to be able to have somebody to bounce off ideas possibly about how to fix this thing, or she's just really excited and wants to share this news. And in that moment, it is about her. Okay. Now, with that said, you may be hearing this experience that I just told you about and think to yourself, well, why didn't she just speak up louder or whatever? And what I've learned is that the way in which men talk to each other and the way in which women talk to each other is vastly different. So, and keep in mind, I'm a guy that grew up around a lot of women, so I'm actually typically more versed in how women communicate and more comfortable in terms of how they talk to each other specifically. And what I've observed is that women are a lot more, how should I say, polite when it comes to conversation, because their motto is, I want to be heard. But if I want to be heard, I have to show respect to a person who's talking who also wants to be heard. And what that means in the world of women is that usually when one woman's talking, all the other women in the group are going to typically listen to that one person, let them get out whatever their emotion is or whatever their statement is or whatever they're feeling, get all that stuff out before another woman jumps into the conversation. And so it's kind of like this back and forth thing where one person talks, everybody listens. Once they're done, the next person talks, everybody listens. Once that person's done, the next person talks, everybody listens. And that's how they're used to communicating with each other. Now, the way guys communicate, which is honestly frustrating to me, but because I didn't grow up around this as much, but I've gotten more used to it and I'm not as bothered by it now. But the way men typically communicate with each other is one guy's going to start talking, and then another guy's going to try to interject and tell a story that says, oh, my story is similar to what you're talking about. And then another guy's going to try to interject. And it could be like 4 or 5 guys interject before the original guy gets back to continuing to try to tell his story. And then as he's telling his story, another guy's going to try to interject in also. And so there's this constant thing of like guys that are constantly jumping into another guy's conversation, and there's interruption. And then there's one guy trying to talk louder than the other guy. And somehow this doesn't seem to bother anybody, but that's typically what I've observed in terms of guys communicating with each other. So because guys don't chastise other guys for this way of communication because it's normal to us, we get into trouble when women are trying to talk to us and they're thinking, I'm going to communicate with this guy like I do with other women, whereby I'm going to talk, he's going to listen, and then once I'm done getting everything out, he's going to be able to interject. And then what we're thinking is, as she's talking, she's going to want us to jump in with our thing, because in order for this to be a conversation that's a back and forth, as the guy, she's going to want me to interject because she's going to want my opinion about how to fix this thing or to relate my experience to hers. But that is actually a really, really annoying thing to women, because again, they're coming from a communal standpoint where she's used to being heard and being able to get her full thoughts out. And when you don't do that, it annoys her to no end. And this is why a lot of you guys may be having communication issues with women you're dating or been in a long-term situation with, is because you're thinking, I'm trying to have a conversation, but what's really happening is she's talking and trying to get stuff out. You're interrupting and she's feeling disrespected. And so the best way that you can go about remedying this, it's very, very simple, is recognize that anytime women are talking to you, just by the way of being a guy, you're going to automatically feel the impulse to want to interrupt her or to want to jump in at a time when she's not quite done saying her point. And it's going to be very imperative for you to hold back. Now, some of you guys will think, well, what if I have a thought that just has to get out and I don't want to forget my thought? Well, the truth is you should be listening to her anyway. You should be really like letting her get out her full thoughts and responding to whatever those thoughts are. You shouldn't just have a thing in your head that's like, okay, regardless of what she's saying, I'm going to say this thing that I have to say as soon as she's done. Because if you let her finish her point, the thing that you want to say might not be a relevant thing to say anymore at that point, okay? But to the point is that when she's talking, she's thinking that you're hearing her, and she wants this communication to be one whereby she can get all of her feelings and thoughts out, and she wants to be able to come to you and know that you're going to hear her out all the way versus just assuming that whatever she's saying is only kind of important and then you're going to interrupt it because you have more important stuff to say. And this will save you guys a lot of time and a lot of like hurt feelings and panic and frustration, because just by doing the simple act of letting her get out all of her thoughts, she's going to feel more heard, more cared for, and she's going to appreciate the back and forth he's able to have to you. She's going to build more trust because she's going to know that she can trust to come to you to actually hear her all the way out. And then she's going to also be more open to whatever you have to say as well, because women are already in the practice of being willing to sit there and listen to you. And by the way, this is not talking about women that are like argumentative and just want to always get their point across too. There are women out there like that just want to just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And I know there's a fear that you might have of like, well, if I don't interrupt her, when is she going to stop talking? But I found most women usually have a good grasp on that. They might talk a little bit more than us, but ultimately when it's your turn to talk, and guys talk long too, because I got a lot of long talking guy friends, but when you're talking, the fact that you let her finish her thoughts, she's going to let you finish your thoughts as well. Okay. But just be more respectful, guys. Like, cause I see so many guys, whether it's guys that have girlfriends or like in this case, like I said, I was in a meeting where it's like, it's mostly guys there and there might be like one or two women there that want to say things, but the guys are constantly interrupting. And then they just kind of sit there like, okay, well, I'll just sit here and just let them talk because I can't get my point across. But they really are frustrated and annoyed by it, guys. And so you really need to be the one guy in their life that is mindful of like, oh, let me not be that guy that's going to just annoyingly interrupt because I think I have a better point to say. Let me let them get it out. And you will find that your relationships will be a lot better because of it. Now that you've heard from me, I'd like to hear from you. What things could you do to be a better listener to your woman? If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment down below or write to me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. Are you ready to learn killer icebreakers that attract women on dating apps? Go to introvertdatingsuccess.com right now to watch my free video training, How to Get Attractive, Feminine, Emotionally Stable Women Dying to Respond to Your First Messages on Dating Apps Without Using Sleazy Pickup Lines, which will give you the key secrets to sparking attraction and conversations with women online the smart way. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment on this episode, and catch new episodes 7 days a week right here on YouTube or wherever podcasts can be found. In the meantime, be sure to check out other episodes so that you too can learn how to date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.